welcome to episode 17 of
Usapang
Usapang
Training
at
at iba
Iba
pa.
Pa. Of course, brought to you by the Philippine Society for Talent Development or PSTD. We took a 2-week break because nag-holiday po, di ba? At saka Father's Day. But we are back. And some of you have been with us in previous episodes. Some may be first-time viewers. So, papakilala muna natin uli ang ating mga hosts. This is Louie Banta, CEO and Chief Trainer of Learning Just Made Better or LJMB and solid supporter of PSTD.
Okay, ako naman, Edwin Ebreo po, CEO of Executive Corporation and a member of the Philippine Society for Talent Development Board of Trustees.
All right. June Roy po, past president ng PSTD 2021 and currently working as OD Consulting Head of Nomura Research Institute. Gandang hapon.
And finally, Pearl Martinez po, Global Learning and Development Manager of SGS and Co. and currently the chair of the membership committee. So welcome to our episode of Usapang Training at Iba Pa.
Balitang PSTD muna tayo before proceeding to our guest for today. Pearl, take it away.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me share my screen. Give me. Okay. All right. So, yeah. Ay, sa dulo na ako. Okay. So, welcome to Balitang PSTD. Ano ba ang mga upcoming activities natin sa PSTD? First, of course, we have our regular training programs. We have Designing a Hybrid Learning course delivered by Lawrence Ko and Marby Tabungar. This is on malapit na. So hopefully nag-register na kayo for this. It's on June 26, 27, and 28. So 26 will be done online.
Bukas
Of course,
na.
Oo, bukas na. Our very own Edwin Ebreo will be
Yes.
delivering competency framework building for talent development. This will be on July 5 to 6. Yan. And of course, our very own AM Villaluz or Anna May Villaluz, medyo nagkaka-challenge si AM ngayon sa kanyang connectivity, but she will be delivering via Zoom, measuring the value of learning on July 11.
Ano yan? 4-level evaluation.
Yes, so magandang mag-enroll dyan. And of course, facilitating skills training on July 18 to 20, facilitated by Cindy Moreno and April Salonga. And on July 24 to 26, we have Bridging Competency Gaps Through Effective TNA. Of course, sa ating mga kaigala sa Davao, meron tayong training dyan na ang title ay Training and Beyond Limitless Possibilities in Talent Development. We have, it'll be delivered by Irene, our very own Irene Isleta, Romel Ancheta, and Rina Rivero. So, magkita-kita tayo sa Panagtigum 2023 in Radisson, Davao.
Additional info, Pearl, dun lang sa Panagtigum. That's the tipanan of our Davao chapter.
Okay, so welcome to our Davao chapter. Sana tayo ay magkita-kita doon. Yan. So, for all of these training programs, please register at pstd.org. We're also inviting you to the talent development best practices in the post-pandemic workplace. This is our PSCD June Tipanan for 2023. And good news because this will be delivered live and free for members. So if you want to share your best practices or also learn best practices from different industries and different members of PSCD, please do join us in our Tipanan for this coming month. And we also have a learning conversation that will happen via Zoom with our new group called the Junior PSTD. So this is a project, a baby of Edwin Embreo. So we'll be bringing along our PSTD advocacy to the academe. So gusto nating magkaroon ng mga members na mga nasa college pa, di ba, nasa academic environment, para mag-align yung academe and yung workplace. Okay. And the first Talent Development Research Conference will happen on July 27th. So please do join us at Discovery Primera Makati. So this will be a very good research presentation of research. And I think this is also something that's coming from the research that we did, diba, with PSTD. And we have Dr. Ed Canela, Dr. Perla Bernardo, and Dr. Verhel Binghay. Yan, ano ko yan, teacher ko din yan si Dr. Binghay. Isa yun sa mga institusyon na talaga sa talent development. Okay, and also, of course, registration is still open for the 48th National Convention titled Breakthrough Conquering Limitless Possibilities. So please do join us. If you are a member, please do join us. If you're not a member, then be a member now and join us in our national convention. And in the national convention, we shall also be awarding this year's PSTD Gawad Maestro. So catch the early bird rates and also discounts for hotel and accommodation if you do join us in the national convention. And we'd like to thank, so medyo patawarin nyo kami at magpo-promote lang kami nung mga nag-sponsor at tumulong sa atin to realize our national convention. Our platinum sponsors, KMC, Intellicare, Meralco Power Academy, and our gold sponsors, 7-Eleven, Meralco, Prevo, Profiles, the Medical City, and RCBC. We also have as our gold sponsor Mondnisin and PLDT Smart. For our silver sponsors, we have Avega, Josh Jen Joy Gifts, Gallup, of course, our LJMB, ang ating Louis Banta, and
Big supporter.
PWC. Yes, a big supporter. And if you're not yet a member, please do become a member because you can take advantage of a variety of tools that we are sharing in our LXP. So all of these things that you're seeing on the screen, these are available in our LXP. So yung digital library natin, di ba, of tools. So makakakuha kayo ng mga libreng tools that have been shared to us not only by the Australian, PAHRODF, yan mahaba. And of course, our very own members also have shared their own tools. Yan, so that's it. Thank you, everybody. I will stop sharing now.
Year of PSTD yata kasi sobrang daming nangyayari, no, sa ating society. If you're joining us or if you're viewing this broadcast and you are not yet a member of PSTD, please check out the website www.pstd.org. Mag-member na, napakaraming mga benefits. No? Nag-ready na nga ako, nag-register ako dun sa 5+1 for September.
Wow.
Sa Boracay, dadaling ko yung buong team ng LJMB, no? So I hope that the others who are listening will also join, if not the entire team, no? Wag lang kayong umattend, magsama kayo, no, ng mga colleagues natin. To those who just joined us, this is again the 17th episode, 17 of Usapang Training at iba pa. And we will go from talent assessment to career development. That's what we'll talk about. Pag-uusapan po natin yung comprehensive talent assessment, identifying strengths and areas of improvement of our talents or employees, and how do we leverage them for both individual and organizational success. We have a guest. Talagang bagay na bagay sa ating topic na subject matter expert on talent assessment. And he is the talent business or talent solutions business leader of Mercer, a global consulting leader. He has been in the field of HR consulting for more than 20 years. Let's all welcome our guest for the 17th episode, Sean Darilay. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Louis. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Magandang hapon, magandang gabi. Very excited and honored to be part of this very energetic and learning-oriented society and group of friends. Thank you so much for having me today.
Salamat din sa pag-oo na mag-guest ka dito sa topic na to. No, ilan lang yung pwede nating i-guest natin dito considering the specialized nature of the knowledge that the guest should bring in. And let's now jump straight to our key questions. Sean, pag nababanggit yung talent assessment, it's often, if not always, associated with recruitment. Di ba? Kasi talent assessment nga, no? What are the other uses of talent assessment outside of the recruitment and screening process?
Thanks for that. Very, very good number one question. Well, you see, there's been a lot of, a lot of seismic changes in the workforce. And with respect to the impact of AI technology, a lot of things will change. And specific to that will be the skills requirement of most organizations, industries, and so on. Of course, for all people and employees. Therefore, we're seeing a lot more demand and really use cases on how assessments are not only used for recruitment when you're getting people in, but in fact more now towards how you upskill and reskill your people to really prepare for the future of work or the future of now. And therefore, not only around leadership assessments, but also about functional competencies, how fit are your people, how capable are they with respect to the skills that you need to bring to the table. So yung mga skills gap analysis, di ba? You need to be focusing more on that to be able to understand how can you really improve your training programs then. Because otherwise, if you don't have the assessment data, then the return on an investment for training may not be as properly tracked and allocated. So those are some of the examples that we're seeing more and more: upskilling, reskilling, especially as well that we're looking at not only about functional and technical, behavioral skills as well, diba? Communication skills, problem solving, leadership styles are also changing as we speak. So more and more there's a need to assess people to be able to prepare ourselves for the future.
So that's the critical importance of assessment, no? Now going out of just applications in recruitment and sourcing. Ed, para bumibuelo ka magtanong.
Oo nga eh. It sounds like you have to do talent assessment all the time, ano. Meron bang is there a solution that tracks all the assessments? I mean, obviously it all starts in recruitment, right? When
Yep.
you hire the person, that's the time that you do the assessments. And then I imagine that as people journey inside the organization, there will be some changes in those data that you've uncovered during the recruitment. Meron ka bang recommendation, Sean, on how to manage, how to organize and systematize your talent assessment?
Good question. Actually, we've seen some of these cases sa mga clients namin. To your point, Edwin, no? Ed, before nga sa recruitment talaga siya ginagawa. And once employees reach their journey towards development inside the organization, sabi nga ng mga natin, 'di ba, mga talent development, learning development partners and friends, we are not miracle workers. 'Di ba? So that's why it's critical to really assess people at the onset. But the more critical now is to align those assessments. Because if these are not aligned assessments, for example, in the BPO space, diba? Right now, we are seeing a lot of our clients use English proficiency assessments. So these are globally rated assessment tools that we have that allows our BPO clients to really assess the capability of their call center agent applicants from grammar, pronunciation, fluency, and so on. But if that assessment is not applied all throughout the process of training, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and so on, if that's not aligned with the training team and the development team, hindi solid yung experience and the way to assess and track performance eventually. So that's one very good case study that we're seeing a lot more. And ano naman, for example, most of our companies now are really hoping to get industry ready graduates or students, di ba? So more and more, how can we really assess our as we know with a lot of UN data on how we are lagging behind globally on educational capability or graduate quality. More and more, you need to put in place assessment metrics or capabilities to say, are our graduates industry ready? Do they have the right skills and capabilities on the onset? And that also impacts not only the corporate take-in for talent pipeline, but also provides feedback to the academe, diba? When you assess students at that level, now they have more perspective to say, oh, I need to change my curriculum, diba? I need to look at more skills because the enterprise, the industry are looking at these skills for the future, or these are what they will be needing with respect to the workforce that they need the next 2 to 3 years. So maraming application, but it's really now about aligning most of this together. Because if these are not aligned, you won't be able to maximize you won't be able to optimize the use of this data.
And to your point, Sean, no, it's both corrective, no, the academe correcting, whatever feedback is given by the results of the assessment, and talent development training teams, no, internal training teams also closing the gaps or filling in the gaps that educational systems are not able to provide.
Concern ko nga yun, Louis. Sabi ko, may ma-hire pa kaya tayo kung hindi papasa ng assessment?
That's also in a way the extreme case, di ba? That's why some
Kasi
companies
talent, di ba? Job ready. Paano kung yung hinahanap nating competencies and aptitudes are not there, or maybe
Siguro tanong ko, kasi we give all these talent assessments, no? Ako ang dilemma ko dyan, are we putting them in boxes? Parang ito yung fit for this and ito yung fit for that, para ganun. Is this not encouraging diversity in your, like, for management? Yeah, do we discourage yung diversity in your, let's say, management team if we put them in boxes na ito yung mga pang-management lang to based on their skills. Ito pang ano lang to pang operator, pang rank and file yung ganitong klase ng tao. Is that, I think that's a dilemma that I am currently facing.
Yeah, good point, Pearl. I think what's interesting now happening as well is that with technology, assessment tools are now easily customizable. So it allows us to be more agile and versatile especially if we're in a fast changing environment. For example, my company is transforming for the future. I need these new sets of skills for my leadership team. Then I can actually customize the competencies in that specific assessment portfolio. So it's not actually boxing it, but it's giving us more tools to be more agile in a way. And we know that industries and businesses are expecting different demands and skills for the future. Therefore, we also need to be prepared for that. And I guess the other point here is with scientific based assessments, it also addresses the biases that we normally encounter when we assess people for promotion, diba? Favorite siya ni boss so therefore naging ganyan. But with assessment, it actually levels the playing field, diba? And also in a way that we are using technology now, virtually, digitally. It also, the Philippines is how many 7,000 islands. Sometimes those in the provinces get left behind with respect to opportunities now on recruitment or even the ability to showcase their skills internally. But if you can send a virtual assessment to a certain population, in maybe Bohol, anywhere in the Philippines. The data that comes in provides a playing field again to those in the provinces to showcase the capabilities. So it allows technology gives us that additional, boost of capability to address diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I think yung issue ng diversity, equity, and inclusion is not at risk when we do assessments because we're looking at capabilities and competencies at hindi naman personality, unless meron kang personality na hinahanap para doon sa para doon sa position. Pero actually I just want to share a dilemma sa recruitment because I run training on recruitment, yung buong recruitment process, both from the perspective of HR recruitment and the hiring decision makers. I noticed that a lot of companies who used to do assessments are starting to veer away from because many candidates, especially the skilled ones, don't want to go through assessments. I don't know. I'd like to ask our audience kung nangyayari din ba yan sa inyo, na parang tama yung sinabi mo, Sean, and I've heard that before, that the assessments reduce the bias, yung mga personal bias, not just in promotion but also in making hiring decisions. But the dilemma is, pag tinanong, meron po bang assessment? Meron. Ay, may ganun.
Ayaw na.
Ano kayang ang pwede nating gawin? Is there a way to assess talents without the paper and pencil, so to speak, assessment tools?
Well,
Yan ang challenge.
I guess there are certain strategies to do that. Pero let me start, for example, with the BPO industry. It's actually not the BPO companies requiring assessments. For example, English speaking skills now. It's their principal in the US and Europe, outside, who are requiring that because they need data. They need data to be able to assess the quality of people coming in. And of course, you also need to be, to your point, and you need to be careful of where do you use assessment. Otherwise, you'll have zero applicants, diba? So because it adds friction in the process in the recruitment funnel. Therefore, of course, you need to put it in towards a certain maybe third, fourth step of the recruitment process para may buy-in na yung candidate. They've already experienced the company, they've been exposed to the culture, the brand, and they're a bit more attached to how medyo committed na sila sa application nila. Pero of course, for certain skills or talent group which are very highly in demand, for example, your software developers, I'm pretty sure they won't be going for assessments unless they really love the company and that's part of their goals. So you need to balance it out. I totally agree. Otherwise, your pipeline will be very much affected, and your success rates will be affected.
I think this is an opportunity to rethink assessment as well. Na baka kasi doon sa training ko ng interviewing, yung technical assessment goes into the technical interview. So, ginawa mo lang verbal yung paper and pencil na technical assessment. I wonder if the person has the capability na draw out naman yung this person can do the job. Baka pwedeng gamitin yung talent assessment post-recruitment for developmental purposes rather than as a screening tool. What do you folks think of that? Sean and yung iba baka sa chat you can share some thoughts about that. Sean? What do you think?
Well, sure. Obviously, for example, if you're hiring, salesperson or a Python developer, data coder, it allows you to really have the right data to understand a person's skill level. And of course, that links to your training programs, diba? So most of our assessments that we generate have actually individual development plans generated immediately after the assessment. So you can see there what kind of development tips should the person have, taking into account the typical 70-20-10, learning pathways. So with that kind of IDP attached to that assessment, mas mabilis na yung training din. Kasi na-identify mo na yung mga di ba? Yung mga of course those are tips for people managers and the learning development team to use. But just imagine the scale that you can have and the data that you have, not only for the person but for the whole group or the whole batch. Mas madali mo nang ma-differentiate yung training intervention mo because of the data. And most of these now are AI, AI supported. The recommendations on IDP are now using AI. And for those organizations which have invested on huge learning and development systems like Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, for example, you can already link or integrate that IDP. So for example, you're hiring someone for digital marketing, depending on the IDP results on strengths and weaknesses, integrated na integrated na dun sa report yung LinkedIn Learning courses that the person needs to take. So mas mabilis na siya.
And I can see Sean in Edno and Pearl talagang well there will be no perfect candidate for any post. So the decision now is more on who will be more trainable or whose gaps, right, will be easier to close when we hire this candidate. And that's where the assessments generating IDPs really become an important input. You started mentioning, go ahead, Ed. Is that you?
Yeah, oo. Kasi yung pinoint out ni Sean, sa akin napakahalaga noon yung the integration integration of the IDP with the result of the talent assessment. Because in many companies, especially those without training department, or there are also companies na hiwalay talaga yung talent attraction at hiwalay din yung training and development. Maraming pagkakataon na hindi nagkikita. Right? When I joined a company before, hindi nagkikita yun pinagdugtong lang namin, kasi medyo siloed pa yung operation. So siguro ang tanong doon, it's maybe later on, when we go to the practical tips, ano yung mga practical ways by which we can implement the integration. You mentioned about technologies or AI tools. So ano kaya yung mga tools na yon by which we can do that integration. But for now, I'd like to affirm that, na napakahalaga nung ganong insight. Yeah, back to you, Louis. Thank you, Sean.
And you know what,
Thanks, Jun.
tama yung sinabi mo kasi in the case of my BPO clients, talent acquisition teams are always in conversations, open and close parenthesis, arguments with the training team. Okay? Because who's responsible or who's accountable for the success and failure of the agents in 30 days, 60 days in training, di ba? And I'm sure si Sean maraming may verify that Sean as well. No?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Louis, you mentioned about, I guess, with all of these tools and diba, and capabilities, at the end of the day, it also goes down to the individual. Diba? How trainable are they? That's why it's also important now for us to, and we're seeing a lot more in the market, that organizations are looking at understanding people's learning agility. Diba? That's the capacity to learn new things, unlearn, and be open to new ideas. And we have assessments for that too. No? So learning agility allows us to segment people on their capacity to learn. And with that kind of segmentation and data, now we'll be able to understand people's ability to learn new skills, either how proximate they are on the existing skills, or skills that are much farther or more difficult to learn. And with that data naman, allows us to really define or design our training programs in a more agile way. diba? Rather than one size fits all, it's now going to be very personalized. And I think we're talking a lot about personal learning, personalized learning, and that really, for that example of a learning agility assessment, is a very core tool now to get into the journey.
Mhm. And we've been mentioning of tools, no? Or checking with you, Sean, is it talent assessment tool or talent assessment methods? And what are the different types, no? In the spectrum of tools or methods that you use, what are the different types? Because I assume it's not just pen and paper test, no?
Yeah, in fact, we don't have pen and paper now. No,
Mhm.
it's really digital. So for example, from our universe, we talk about the whole suite of talent assessment tools, which have different methodology by segment. No, so when you talk about psychometric tools, then you have your typical pre-employment assessments, from cognitive, behavioral to even personality wise. So that's the typical ones that we see. Diba? So sales personality, is good for B2B, B2C, hiring, do they have leadership potential, yung mga ganon. And then of course now more and more as well on technical skills. So when you talk about technical skills assessment, from functional skills like HR, marketing, data science, coding, even all the way. Let me just go back to personality. We even have dark personality assessments. So we can identify people.
Dark
Can you
personality
repeat- can you repeat
assessment.
We
that,
can
please?
identify people,
Dark?
Ano yung dark?
propensity to commit fraud, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Diba? So our banking clients are using this. Even mga delivery companies are using this because especially if the type of role is required to be
I think I have a
exposed
lot
to
of
this kind
clients
of
who would be
risk.
interested.
So we have those capabilities to to assess people. So yeah, anything under the sun now. But the good thing about that is if you have a tool which has it in one dashboard, then you don't need to switch from one to another dashboard. Kasi some would say, oh, I have a leadership assessment tool, and then pero iba yung provider ng iba. So and then iba yung methodology. Then it's difficult. And of course, as I mentioned, we do have this BPO specific, we call it SpeechX, not Elon Musk SpaceX. So we designed this with Carnegie, who's the global expert in English proficiency. So those are the methodologies behind the tools. So psychometric naman, we pattern a lot of our methodologies with American Psychological Association, for example. And most of the functional assessments we have were co-designed with industry experts.
And I would assume that all the tools, no, even those outside of the psychometric tools, have their own validity, no, and reliability indices, no.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So you can talk about those, di ba, mga CFI, reliability and validity. Yeah.
Okay.
But Sean, question ko, when you like do this for other companies, do you also train like the talent development people in the company and also the talent recruitment people in the company to be able to read through all of these assessments and also parang to make plans outside of the results of the assessment?
Well, definitely, I mean, the reports are very, very detailed in such a way that's easy to, as much as possible in layman's term, to understand the results. And of course, the scoring are there. In some cases, we even work with organizations to customize the scores. So for example, in your organization, Pearl, these are the set of competencies that we have 8 competencies, but our standard assessments are focusing on 6, for example. Then we can work with you to really deep dive and say, let's redesign the assessment, and then now we'll focus on 8. So we call it like a sensing exercise. So that's why I guess with us in the talent development field, competency frameworks are very critical, diba? So which impacts a lot.
Attend kayo sa July
Yeah.
6 and
I
7.
think Ed has a session on building competency framework. So that's also the basic building block of assessments.
Mm.
Because for you to understand the person's fit or profile and readiness for that role, it has to be grounded on frameworks and essentially competencies, for example.
So hindi lang talaga assess lang ng assess, no?
Oo.
Yes.
Assessment is just a way or the process to get to something, but it's grounded on the competencies. Alam mo siya, ako nga, I use assessments to hire employees for my team, no? Ang pinaka-difficulty ko dito, very user-friendly na talaga yung mga interpretation, yung results, no? But it's really the decision-making of the person
Correct.
who's the hiring manager, no? There are high scores in some competencies, there are low scores in some competencies, no? So which one matters more to the position, to the organization, or to the hiring manager?
Actually, nandoon pa rin ako, medyo na-stuck ako ng kaunti doon sa sinabi ni Pearl kanina, yung tinanong ka siya about training the talent development people or the recruitment people on the use of the talent assessment tool. I think, from the PSTD perspective, this is something that we actually need to do, to
Yep.
train.
Yep.
Kasi, no matter how user-friendly our talent assessment reports are, I think it still helps to train. Kasi hindi naman lahat ng talent development professionals natin came from yung mga psychometrics or psychology background. We're coming from different disciplines. And I think it helps to build the competency in the use of talent assessment tools to help people navigate their career, 'di ba? Yung kanilang career development. Yung yung halimbawa nag-assess tayo whether pre-employment or right after employment, and then nagkaroon ng ilang experience yung tao, should we assess the person again? Are we using the same tool, or are we leveling up our tools? Those things are knowledge that I don't think everyone has, and a subject matter expert should guide us in the process of using this talent assessment tools. Kasi parang of course, the talent assessment tool providers teaches you how to read the report, diba?
Yeah.
They tell user training on that. But further down the road, career development, leadership development, succession, parang that's a space where I think PSTD can help our members and those who would become members of PSTD.
And even
Happy to also do a sharing session on that.
Yun,
Ed,
no?
And to your point, and I guess the good news about this is the concepts are not too different at what we're using with respect to learning and development, training and development. It's essentially probably it's more of a knowing the process, what to do next, for example, on action planning, and eventually decision making, and as well as the typical approaches on when do we go back again to assess people, for example, is it 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, mga ganon. And do we use the same tool again, or do we tweak it depending on, or maybe we add new tools, for example, diba? So for example, critical din yung mga 360-degree feedback.
Yeah.
Diba? So hindi lang siya about
In a
the
sense, it's
individual.
talent assessment, no?
Exactly, diba? So for example, I have this client who was trying to, upskill their leadership team, but this is a dispersed executive team in Colorado, in the Philippines, and Australia. Digital 360-degree feedback yung ginawa. Using our existing question bank, but also they link it, they check if it's relevant to their existing competencies, mga ganon. So important yung 360 din, kasi otherwise if it's always one perspective, kulang yon.
And also, Sean, kasama dito yung do we share it to the employee itself, yung ganon. Kasi may mga companies na alam ako na yung talent assessment, they only keep it to the managers, parang ito yung results, diba? Or maybe to the recruitment team or even the talent development team. But yung sharing the results of the talent assessment to the individual so they know what the
Good point.
results are.
Yeah.
Good point. I guess if you look at where we're heading now, diba, we all talk about developing a learning culture,
Yeah.
developing a very strong development culture. So sharing it, transparency is very critical.
Yeah.
Because that also impacts people's engagement and commitment to their own personal development.
Yeah.
That's why that's also important. Very good question, Per.
Mm-mm.
Di ba we have been driving nga, di ba? You own your development, di ba?
Yes.
We have been inculcating self-development. So I think it's a
Yeah.
must. Okay.
Alright.
Sean, you mentioned earlier, when do we reassess the person? 6 months, 12 months, in your experience or in your observation of with clients, how frequent do they do the reassessment?
Most of the time is a year from the training intervention.
1 year.
The typical process is, of course, you understand what skills or competencies you want to assess. Then you take that step back to understanding people's current skills, and you find the gap. And then comes the training intervention. Diba? After the training intervention, maybe 9 months or 1 year, that's then you assess again. Depending na yun sa type of population or skills, but normally after 1 year. And as I mentioned earlier, it could mean the same set of tools to, if it's really functional, pwede mong gawin yung same set kasi you're focusing on functional. But if it's more behavioral or other like leadership, you could be talking about 360 or other type of tools. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng same pa rin yung ano mo. I think earlier on, Ed, you were talking about, does people's behavior or personality change 3, 4, 5 years from now? And should we use the same kind of tools? I think what we're seeing now is people actually change, diba? People change from the DNA, the personality changes a few years from now, but then the environment also changes. So the type of tools now that you will use now will have to be grounded and aligned with the business requirements, diba? So we need to be always listening to what the business needs for us to identify the right tools.
Mhm.
Pero have you ever encountered, Sean, yung mga magagaling talaga sa assessment and they can cheat their way
Oh
into
yes,
an
oh yes.
assessment?
Yeah. So for example, no, I mentioned I have several examples. No? When you talk about English speaking, yung BPO industry, di ba? And we're doing it virtually now. So if you don't have a proctoring or an AI or a anti-cheating tool to do the assessment, baka yung kapatid ang magpa-test.
Mm.
Diba? Pwedeng yung kapatid yung nagpapa-test, diba? So we actually have technology that when a candidate opens the link to the assessment, they need to show their ID, they need to get their personality identified, and then our AI does not allow them to open new websites and so on, and it flags if, for example, they're talking to someone else, there's someone next to them, they're opening they have their mobile phone with them. So very critical to have that technology now. And maybe just to share as well to everyone, our technology is also very much applicable to the education industry. Kasi diba, digital exams na rin. So therefore, you need to make sure na yung mga bata hindi rin nag-cheat. So you need to have that capability to check. And now with ChatGPT, baka madali lang diba? Madali lang mag-cheat, asking another browser to put in the questions or the answers. So that's very important. But from a methodology perspective, Pearls, we do have those, the way that the questions were designed have the ability and the algorithm to check if they are just answering using central tendency. There's some patterns that people just answer the set of questions. So we have those kind of capabilities to assess and even report if they're not potentially maybe not cheating, but trying to game the system. So we have those kind of anti-cheating measures.
So for every possible workaround, there's now a technology.
You need to have the technology.
Okay. Yeah. So now that very very interesting topic, and not too often do we really talk about the connection between talent assessment and talent development. No? What are your reminders or what does a talent development professional, what do they need to keep in mind when using talent assessments? Especially after this session, they may now be, they may explore, no, using assessment tools. Ano mga caution mo dyan? Ano mga warning mo dyan? Ano mga additional reminders mo?
I guess especially this is if this is going to be an investment for the company, di ba? If ever. We need to make sure that we are aligned with the business. Diba? Ano ba yung gusto nating i-assess to make sure we help the business? So have we already done our inventory of the skills, competencies that we need for the future? Do we have that ready? Because otherwise, we need to always step back, diba? Before we even get assessments, we need to identify those. And then, of course, somehow we need to look at the culture of the organization, diba? How open are we in that respect about getting these new tools in that will have better impact to the type of culture and the type of performance we're trying to change. And at the end of the day, these are data-based, data-specific tools. So obviously, this will help in explaining. It will help us in explaining our decisions going forward, and will help in the learning engagement of our workforce. Kasi minsan, di ba, what I think what we're hearing a lot more from our clients as well is, we invested with this provider on mga learning courses, may mga ganyan-ganyan. Pero after 6 months, after 9 months, mababa na yung utilization. And then parang we don't know, is this because we need to do more campaigns? But we're paying us annual subscription fee, di ba? Parang ganon. So next year, magba-budget ba ulit tayo? Kasi nagkakaroon ng mga ganong experiences. So one thing that assessments help with that is when you put assessments in the process, it creates a different level of engagement and commitment. Na seryoso yung organization with respect to developing people and upskilling people. So going back to our point about we need to own our own development, sometimes we need to get some of these tools to be engaged. Diba? Ako nga personally, within our company, we can also assess ourselves. So, we can identify our own skills in the system. We can say I'm 9 out of 10 of the skills. But sometimes, actually, I'm always thinking twice of doing that because it's just self-assessment. It's better to have a more scientific way of saying you're actually good in business development. You're actually good in project management. So it's going to be I guess at the end of the day, it's going to be a full system, ecosystem thinking, for us as talent development professionals. We need to be prepared with that. Kasi hindi lang to, this is not a niche tool that we will be using.
Quick question lang po. Kasi pinakikinggan ko yung sinasabi mo, Sean. Tapos na-remind ako nung learning agility, na assessment. Because learning agility in itself can be a competency, right?
Yes.
Pero I wonder if that's contextualized, meaning is it job specific? I imagine, for example, na kung learning and development, learning agility ang pag-uusapan, I do think I have it. Pero kung learning agility in accounting, for example, I don't have it.
It's it's a generic assessment.
Learning agility.
If I can share a slide siguro for everyone.
Please.
Am I able to share the slide there?
Kaya mo nga.
Ayan. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So ito yung laman ng assessment na yun, no? So these are the competencies that are being assessed. Focus and perseverance, planning or organization, inquisitiveness, open-mindedness, drive for mastery, abstract reasoning. So hindi siya functional specific. So this really allows us to look at people's capacity to learn and unlearn new old things. Very, very, of course, for this kind of investment, it could be more of a scale that could be or maybe high stakes roles that you want to put this in. But essentially, and all the way to IDPs, meron din siyang mga IDPs depending on the results of the assessment. Yeah.
This is very interesting kasi tumatakbo yung utak ko, no. If I'm already, functionally competent, that means I've learned something and has an excellent ability to perform at the level I'm expected. For example, as an individual contributor. Pero pagka nag-take ako ng test tapos mababa yung aking learning agility assessment, what does that mean? Does that mean I cannot bring my competency up, say, to a supervisory or managerial level expectation if I have low learning
I think that
agility?
means, Ed, that if you are going to be trained for a skill that is quite far from your current skill, it will take you more time to do that.
Mhm.
But if you are going to be trained to a new skill which is adjacent or related to your current skill, then you'll do that faster. So yun ang pinakasimpleng pinakasimpleng
Okay.
example there.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Oo. So and siguro I can also cite an example. We're working with this big BPO and they want us to help them assess their first line people managers. 500 plus. So parang out of the pandemic, ang dami na promote. Mga bagong supervisor, mga bagong team leaders. And out of the onset, initially inisip namin baka managerial potential assessment yung kailangan nating gawin. But as we talk with our client and look at the competencies that they want to develop, actually it's more about learning agility. Hindi siya yung about focus on managing people, more on about preparing them for that path. So very interesting example, no? Kasi more and more as consultants, automatically you jump the gun. Ito yan, di ba? Ito yung tool, tama dyan. Pero as you learn the client's case and reality, ito yung lumabas. Mas better sa kanila yung learning agility.
And given today's business environment where you can be asked to perform a role or a responsibility or handle a project, be part of a project that's outside of your comfort zone or competency, no? Talagang importante itong learning agility as a competency. And now we all know that there is an assessment to measure that.
Yes.
Would there be any other questions from our hosts? No, perhaps last two questions from Ed or June or Pearl.
Sa akin, it's not really a question, but my takeaway from the whole thing, no? So ang lumilitaw para sa akin at para sa mga kapwa natin, katropang trainers, is we need to be knowledgeable about talent assessment. So we can call that assessment acumen, assessment competency, by knowing what type of competency should we use, paano kung wala tayong budget, anong available out there na pwede naman natin gamitin, no? So that's part of knowing what competency is, why we are doing this. When should we do the competency? Katulad ng sabi ni Sean, no? At least once a year pwede mong balikan, no? Or dependent, no? And then the other one is who should be assessed. Kasi hindi naman lahat, no? These are dictated also by resources and budget. The other one that I got is yung assessment engagement. Kasi kadalasan tayo sa mga consultant or HR, we are the ones very excited, ano? Mayroon tayong ganitong assessment. But look at, let's say, for example, as popular as MBTI, what is the level of excitement and let's say engagement of the people on those assessment results over the years, no? Nagagamit pa ba? No? So the talent development professional has to be able to know how to sustain that. In fact, before sustain it, engage people to make them committed. And I like what you mentioned, Sean, that all of these are also predicated or dictated by the learning culture. Kasi kung wala yung learning culture or mahina yon, then it's compliance thing. At saka yung pagtatagpo nung sinabi ni na Pearl at mo kanina na integrated yung approach, hindi sila magtutugma. So assessment acumen, the engagement, and the culture. That's what I got. And thank you, Sean, for sharing.
Pearl,
Hindi pa tayo nagtatapos ha. Nag-share lang ako ng takeaway ko.
Any takeaways from
may
Pearl?
tanong si Manu sa
Kasi
chat.
may
Manu.
Basahin natin. Curious to know how many separate assessments are considered acceptable when evaluating candidate skills and competencies. In many platforms, skills are assessed individually.
Mm.
Sean?
Yeah. Very good question. And I think there are several factors that will impact that decision. But again, from our experience, we can customize and therefore we can mix and match. Now, it could mean a skill or behavioral or personal pwede sa isang assessment. The question now is how much time do you want that candidate or that person to devote into that specific step of the process? So for example, we talk about BPO volume hiring yan, di ba? They don't want to get their agents as fast as possible. A 45-minute test is already long. Kung isa pa lang yun, what if gusto mong i-test ng dalawa, tatlo, may behavioral ka, may skill. So it's balancing how you want to strategize the assessments. But I guess it's critical to have a tool which you can customize. In more high-stakes assessments like leadership, marami ka na talagang gagawin dyan. Diba? You have assessment centers, your battery of tests. So that goes back to the traditional ones. Pero for the digital assessments, first is you can customize. It's just a matter of how much time do you think is best for engaging or disengaging your applicants, for example, sa recruitment. Yep.
Eh, Sean, sabi mo 45, no? Naalala ko nung mga 30 years ago, 25 years ago, no? When we
One whole
applied
day.
jobs, no? 3 oras.
300 questions.
Talagang-
Mga batteries yun, di ba? Normally.
Battery.
Battery of tests.
Pero I think it also goes with the changing expectations and
Yes.
preferences and demands of the job market. No? Sige.
Correct.
Take away.
Ngayon, uuwian ka ng candidate pagka ganun.
Correct.
Sabihin sa'yo, ay wala, nag-disconnect po.
Oh, tapos ano ka, viral ka pa sa social media
Oh,
for
true, very true. You know, I even did my Facebook search on assessments, no? Marami, for example, kasi BPO ang common, di ba? So I even joined BPO groups just to look at, not even join, mga search lang. Assessment, you can see the feedback ng mga candidates. So you can say, you know, this company A, ang tagal-tagal ng assessment niya, company B.
It's really a candidates market
It is a candidates market.
right now. No? Well, any quick takeaway? And then si Ed, quick ones?
Sa akin, important talaga, sabi nga ni June, yung learning culture. Kasi in our company, aside from yung mga ginagamit for recruitment and also for mga profiling, we also have our own skills benchmark. Yung sasabing skills benchmark where you can take it on your own. Gusto mong i-benchmark yung skills mo against something that is a benchmark across the industry, diba? So merong ganon. So makikita mo rin yung scores mo. Ang it's available for self-development, but hindi lahat nagte-take nito. Parang hindi sila interested, or there's also that fear that skills benchmark na baka mamaya I fall below the benchmark. Baka mamaya pagka
Yung vulnerable.
Oo, di ba? Kasi nakikita yan ng manager eh. Parang pag nag-take ka ng skills benchmark on whatever skills that you would like, di ba? Makikita yun ng manager mo. So that supposed to be is parang yung basis mo for development. But employees would look at it na with fear na baka mamaya hindi ako pumasa and sabihin dapat hindi ka pala pwedeng i-promote kasi hindi ka pa pumapasa doon sa skills benchmark. So I think yung for talent development professionals, it's actually marketing the skills benchmarks. That's important, di ba? To make it appear that this is not a test and this will not be used against you, but this is actually something good for your development.
Ed, quick one.
Actually, marami akong realization today, mga katropa and Sean. I see the opportunity of using talent assessment beyond recruitment, especially at this time where a complex or complicated talent assessment exercise is candidates veer away from it. Nakikita ko yung opportunity to do the talent assessment for after making the hiring decision. One important takeaway ko from Sean is that merong mga assessments that we can use to determine the person's competencies. So yung what the person brings to the company in terms of value. And then second, yung potential. One of them with the dark personality test na nakakatakot ang pangalan. At saka yung learning agility, no? I think those are very important assessments to have, especially when you're screening people for more senior positions. Lagi natin sinasabi sa recruitment na yung a wrong hire will not be corrected by training. Eh di mas lalo na yung wrong promotion, di ba? So, I think we need to start thinking strategically, mga talent development practitioners, about talent assessment. I learned today na hindi lang itong mga psychometric tools ang talent assessment. The IDP in itself, the 360-degree feedback, the performance appraisal tools, and any kinds of observational assessment is talent assessment. That's my takeaway from this.
Thank you. And mga katropa, we say that we trainers or talent development professionals should be lifelong learners, di ba? Sasabi nga lang natin, we need to go out of our comfort zones to have learning agility. So ang assignment natin, inspired by this episode, we have to learn more and really find ways to apply talent assessments in our work as trainers or in L&D. Ako, I have a psychometric background. So we say, whatever exists can be measured. O ngayon, madami lang naman measure, dark personality, learning agility, di ba? Maganda nito, talaga nagiging data-driven ang ating talent development practice. And on top of, the employee getting to know how they stand in terms of these assessment tools, the manager should also be responsible for the 20% coaching and for structuring the 70% on the job experiences. Napakarami nating insights on this very interesting topic. We'd like to thank our guest, Sean Darilay. Sean, maraming salamat for being here in episode 17.
Thank you, everyone. And so, by the way, with respect to that learning agility assessment, if you want to try it yourself, let me know. I can send you the link for that. And then I'll share the report to you. It's an individual report, so you get a sense of where you are. It will be interesting.
I am interested. I guess a lot of people are interested, and we'll be looking forward to that link, Sean. Let's have a souvenir picture. With Sean Darilay.
Bago po tayo maghiwa-hiwalay, I just want to, nakalimutan nating i-emphasize that the reason why we're talking about talent assessment and career development is because it's part of our talent development framework. And we will continue to talk about those elements and components of talent development. So we will go beyond the training and development, ladies and gentlemen. So continue to join us. Abangan nyo po yung mga iba pang components or elements ng talent development to deepen our appreciation and understanding of our talent development framework.
Sa mga susunod na episode, Ed, simulan natin dun sa slide ng talent development framework na ibalik natin sila doon. Tama? So we will have an episode for each part.
Para merong anchor, no? Sige, let's do that.
Libre daw ba yung learning agility assessment? Sabi ni Marco, libre daw.
So yes po sa lahat ng it's a free trial, no?
Free
and
trial.
then as mentioned, Mercer is a merchant affiliate of PSTD.
Yeah.
So you also have discounts on our services.
Ayun.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Tashan and Norman and team. Let's now cue everybody for our class picture.
Okay, everyone, let's have a photo.
Ang pogi ni Norman na.
Umaabot.
Maabatar.
1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, everyone.
Salamat po.
Salamat. See you next week.
God bless.
Thank you, Sean.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Sean,
you.
maraming salamat.
Daming learning.